Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us today because, well, we're tackling something that impacts literally every single minute of our waking lives, our emotions. Did you know the average person spends over 2 hours a day just ruminating on negative thoughts? I mean, think about it. That is years of our lives completely lost to stress, anxiety, and frustration over things that honestly often haven't even happened yet. Our goal today is to reclaim that time. We're going to do that by completely decoupling your core identity from your passing feelings. We're going to build a really concrete, highly actionable toolkit for processing emotional baggage so that your emotions finally become your helpers rather than your masters. Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever just sat there and wondered why it is so incredibly difficult to just stop feeling sad, upset, or frustrated? I want to validate that struggle right out of the gate. Literally everyone on Earth wrestles with negative emotions. It is absolutely not a personal flaw, it's not a lack of willpower, and it is definitely not a weakness on your part. As you'll see, it's actually an ancient survival mechanism built right into your biology. Your brain is basically running on ancient caveman software in a hypermodern world, and as you might guess, sometimes those two just do not mix. Here is our roadmap for this explainer. We're starting with number 1, your ancient survival mechanism. Then we'll hit the truth about happiness, detaching from negative emotions, the Sedona method, a concept called being above the line, and finally, tracking your emotional state. Moving right into section 1, your ancient survival mechanism, or the negativity bias. To fix the problem, we first really have to understand this outdated software we're running. Think about our ancestors for a second. For them, paying deep, constant attention to negative events is exactly what kept them alive. If a tribe rejected you back then, it literally meant starving or being totally exposed to wild animal attacks. Rejection was a literal death sentence. Today, though, the context is completely different. Your boss scolds you, or maybe a friend reads your text and just leaves you on red for 2 days. Sure, it feels terrible, but it's not life-threatening, right? Yet, because of this deeply ingrained negativity bias, your heart races and your palms sweat as if that unread text is a saber-toothed tiger waiting in the bushes. We are triggering ancient survival alarms over modern, everyday annoyances. Recognizing this biological mismatch is the absolutely critical first step to freeing yourself. Section 2. The truth about happiness and deconstructing the illusion. So, if our brains are biologically hardwired for negative survival, how do we actually find joy? And this brilliantly illustrates why chasing external fixes usually fails us entirely. Hedonic adaptation. It's this psychological tendency we all have to quickly return to a baseline level of happiness, no matter what major positive or negative events happen to us. Think about buying a brand new car. You get that amazing new car smell, you feel incredibly successful, and boom, it gives you a massive spike of dopamine. A huge rush of pleasure, but it's just a temporary fix. Give it a few months, that shiny new car just becomes your everyday commute vehicle. The thrill fades, you adapt, and you are right back to your baseline. You're basically running on a frustrating treadmill of fleeting satisfaction. Material goods simply cannot and will not sustain true joy over the long haul. So where does joy actually come from? Check out this eye-opening research from Sonia Lubomirsky, the author of The How of Happiness. Notice that tiny 10% slice? That represents external factors, money, material things, the weather, or even a major job promotion. Only 10%. Meanwhile, 50% comes directly from your genetics, which is your natural baseline. But here is the most empowering part of this research, that solid 40% dedicated to internal factors. This proves that a massive, life-changing portion of your true happiness depends entirely on you. It depends on your daily mindset and your habits, not on what happens to you externally. Section 3. Detaching from negative emotions and shifting your identity. Knowing that 40% is in our hands, we have to learn how to actively stop identifying as our negative emotions. Take this incredibly relatable story about a woman named Penny. Penny's boss corrected her work for the 3rd time in a single week. Naturally, she felt this massive wave of inadequacy, right? She started spiraling into thinking she didn't deserve her job at all. But instead of letting that emotion completely consume her and ruin her entire evening, she had a realization. She stopped, took a breath, and told herself, "I feel stupid, but I am not stupid." That exact phrase is remarkably powerful. It helped Penny completely separate her core, unchanging identity from a fleeting, temporary emotional state. It stopped her from feeding herself a toxic narrative about past mistakes. Building on that, you need to start treating your emotions like clothes you can just take on and off, rather than skin that is permanently attached to you. Just notice the profound difference between the internal narrative, I am sad, versus the detached observation, I am experiencing sadness. When you say I am, you lock that emotion right into your identity. Creating linguistic distance prevents emotional amplification. Take someone like Sophia from our source material. Making small everyday mistakes made her incredibly angry, and she would spiral into thinking she could never do anything right, that she was a total loser. But by pausing and remembering she was simply experiencing human error in that moment and actively focusing on her past achievements, she broke that negative cycle entirely. Section 4, the Sedona Method, a framework for letting go. Now that we know how to distance ourselves from our feelings, let's move from theory into a highly actionable release technique based on Hale Dwoskin's renowned work. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how preparation works. Let's look at Emily's story. Emily felt deeply inadequate and jealous watching her peers hit major life milestones while she just felt stuck. To overcompensate for these feelings, she created wildly impossible daily goals for herself. Like, she decided she was going to suddenly jog for an hour every single day with absolutely zero prior training. Of course, when she inevitably failed, she felt even more worthless and miserable. The turning point was when she stopped punishing herself. She replaced that extreme list with genuinely achievable goals. By hitting those smaller targets, she gradually let go of her underlying feelings of incompetence. She stopped holding on to unrealistic expectations, and that perfectly sets the stage for a formal emotional release. And here is how you formally release those lingering feelings using the famous Sedona method. It's 5 beautifully simple steps. Step 1. Focus on a specific emotion. It could be simple, like how Penelope felt intensely irritated just because she woke up late and had to rush her morning routine. Step 2. Ask yourself, could I let this feeling go? Just let it be, or even welcome it. Step 3. Ask, will I let it go? Step 4 is absolutely the most important part. Ask yourself, when? Take a deep breath, and your answer should always be now. Finally, step 5. Repeat this until the emotion has completely dissolved. Answering honestly and moving through these steps can absolutely melt away daily irritations and major heavy stresses alike. Section 5, Are You Above the Line? Measuring Self-Awareness. Let's look at a really powerful behavioral rubric from Jim Dethmer and Diana Chapman to measure your daily emotional consciousness. So, the crucial point is understanding whether you are operating above the line or below the line in any given moment of your day. When you are above the line, you're curious, you consciously listen to others, and you take full responsibility for your actions. You are open to learning. But when you're below the line, you're defensive, you're finding faults, gossiping, arguing to be right, and shutting down differing opinions. Think about Harriet, who ignored her deep lingering unhappiness for years by constantly blaming her circumstances. Once she finally became self-aware, acknowledged she was deeply miserable operating below the line, and took responsibility by moving to a new city, she finally found joy in the small things again. Constantly checking if you are above or below the line dictates the entire trajectory of your life, your career, and your relationships. Finally, Section 6, Tracking Your Emotional State, Recording Your Progress. Mastering your emotions isn't just about reading a psychological concept once and hoping it magically sticks. It requires active observation and consistent data collection on yourself. This is a simple weekly tracker you can start using today. Seriously, try this tonight. Every evening, log your feelings on a scale of 1 to 10. Note the specific negative emotion you felt and identify its exact cause. Then be highly critical here. Assess if your interpretation actually matched the objective facts of the situation. Finally, document exactly how you released it. Consider Katie. She heard a workplace rumor about a potential layoff. Operating completely below the line, she panicked and saw it as an absolute disaster. But by stepping back and tracking the concrete facts versus her spiraling feelings, she realized it wasn't a problem at all. She actually had ample savings and highly marketable skills. It was a golden opportunity to finally pursue her dream job. Logging this kind of data actively breaks the cycle of negative assumptions. It turns you from a passive victim of your emotions into a proactive, resilient observer of your own life. Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today, right? From overriding our ancient negativity bias to applying the Sedona method and tracking our daily progress. I want to leave you with this final empowering thought. Emotions are your helpers, not your masters. Good emotions bring you happiness, and bad emotions are simply there as biological alarms to teach you something about your environment or yourself. So the crucial question for you is, how will you use this incredible toolkit to observe your emotions, step above the line, and build a happier, far more conscious life starting right now? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I absolutely cannot wait to see how you apply these insights to your own journey.